I'd like to call our next speaker, who's Errol Smart, who's the Managing Director and CEO of Orion Minerals.
Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for turning out. And I've been sitting here thinking about what I wanted to say today and what I wanted to show you. And I've been in Australia for 10 days on this trip. And it's been a very interesting experience. It's been a completely different experience to 12 months ago when I stood here. And I actually think that there'll be more value in speaking about the lived experience of doing what Orion has been doing in South Africa rather than speaking about our fantastic assets. So I'm going to show you just very quickly a snapshot of Orion and what we're doing. And then I just want to speak a little bit about the experience that we've had in the 7-8 years that we've been operating in South Africa. But thank you very much to ADU, to PayDirt, and thanks for Perth to hosting us, and thanks to the Minister for turning out and being Team South Africa leader this year. I apologize, Minister. Last year I had to perpetrate state capture. The leader wasn't here, so I stood up and I declared myself Minister for the conference. And I had to lead your team here, who did a fantastic job. And the Minerals Council wasn't here. The CEO of the Minerals Council wasn't here last year. Well, this year, we're here in force as Team South Africa. And that's what's changing things. And I've just had 10 days in Australia speaking to investors. It was quite an interesting experience. For a start, investors wanted to speak to us. It's been a long time since investors wanted to speak to us. When I took some of the people in this room, the Waddell family, Dennis Waddell is our chairman, over to South Africa in 2016, and I said, guys, there is the most fantastic opportunity in minerals that are going to be desperately needed in the middle 2020s. It was a different world. We had a previous minister that had sat here on the stage. It wasn't fun, I can tell you. It wasn't nice. We've been on a journey as a country, and I suddenly realized I'm now becoming a Mandela as well, because I've lived through that. I've had the fantastic opportunity of living through a complete change in a society. And I lived through the Rainbow Nation Mandela era. And that sense of Invictus, that sense of we can do things and we can do it better and we can be invincible. And we're starting to feel that. There's a shoots of feeling that in South Africa again. And it's amazing because there's so many South Africans in Australia that have been so negative for so long. But they're getting the message from home. And that message is starting to get positive. And investors and fund managers are contacting us and saying, we want to speak to you, we want to hear, because we've always known that the minerals are there. We've always known that there's fantastic opportunities, and we know there's great companies doing great things. But suddenly it's starting to look like it may become investable. And it's been a fantastic journey in 7-8 years that I've been part of taking an Australian company back to South Africa and then South Africanizing it. We took a 100% Australian-owned company. We took Australian capital back to South Africa to start exploration because you couldn't find money for exploration in South Africa. And we started doing work and we started proving opportunity. And we joined the Minerals Council. We started working with the Minerals Council to be part of the solution, not be part of the problem. And I always stand up here, and Musa Mabuza and I, we arm wrestle here every time, because he always says, you're so critical. I'm not critical. I just want us to do the best that we can be. And I see it starting to happen. There's something that's changed, and it is happening. So let me just take you through a little bit of Orion and where we are at. So, because of the things I'm going to say on the stage today, compliance officers of the ASX are probably watching, so my apologies. All of you are warned, read that disclaimer. The disclaimer costs us more than the drill holes that we speak about afterwards. It's important, but it's about governance. And that's something that you learn when you operate in Australia, and then you go into the third world, into my home in South Africa. It's about governance, that ESG thing. It's important because it gives investors confidence. It gives people confidence in what you're doing. So when we set out and we went to South Africa, we said, well, how are we going to do things? The minerals are there, but how do you do things differently so that it's successful? You had the big companies in South Africa, the Anglos, the South 32s, the Goldfields. They had come and were going when we were going. We said, listen, there's a challenge in South Africa, and it's a social challenge. So if we go there, let's do things, and we coined the term at the time, and Dennis coined that term, as just doing it the right way. Just give it a go and do the right thing. Then a bunch of geniuses discovered the world, two important terms that now rule our lives: critical minerals and ESG. You know, critical minerals wasn't a term 6-7 years ago. ESG wasn't a term that people will use 10 years ago. Now it is at the core of mining business around the world, and that's what we do. So we're on a journey, and it's a journey that's starting to deliver. As I said, we took a bunch of Australian investors on an ASX listed company with a market cap of about $6 million when we went over to South Africa. We listed on the JSE without raising money in the JSE, because you couldn't raise money on the JSE for a junior exploration company. Because I said, you watch, South Africans are going to start wanting to invest in exploration. I won't take you through the whole challenge and the story that we've gone through. But 2 months ago, we went out to raise money. 3 months ago, I came here to Australia. I tried to speak to investors. It was just before the election. I couldn't find a door that would open for me. Went back to South Africa, and the South African investors said, with or without the Australians, we're going to be there. We've just raised $11.3 million equivalent, and that money was raised in South Africa from South African investors. As a company, we've grown to the point that 50% of our shares are now held on the JSE. We are practically a South African company. 50% of the shareholders are South Africans. If I look at my share register, more than half of that are held by historically disadvantaged South Africans. When I walked through the streets of Prieska, Minister, when you were a young troublemaker there in the streets of Prieska, they started your story when you got involved in that other trouble coal business. They forgot about the copper. This guy ran the union. There wasn't officially a union, I think, but he probably ran it in the background. He was a troublemaker there at our Prieska mine. He was also a great athlete, and he still holds some of the town athletics records and all sorts of things. So we're going to take him back there, because he keeps coming to threaten me that I must show him the copper. Unfortunately, there's a race underway, and I think this race I might just lose. And this one I'll be very happy losing, because I always said I'll be producing copper before South Africa has a proper mining cadastre. It's a tight race. It's a tight race, but I think we're getting there. And the minister stood here again on the stage, and I can remember him standing on the stage many years ago after the disastrous Zwane mining charter. And he stood and he said, exploration should be free of BEE obligation, because that's how we'll get foreign investors. It took a while for the message to drift down to his regional managers, but I'm very pleased to report that it's been 18 months since I've had a prospecting right awarded without a demand for BEE on my mineral right. It's starting to work. Old prospecting rights that we've struggled for a long time to get, we've got them. They're being awarded. Now we're getting water rights, we're getting environmental rights. This wheel's starting to turn, and investors are seeing it. It's starting to happen, and South Africa is going to change. So we focus in the Northern Cape, just up the road there from Brad and them. In fact, we've got similar major shareholders. And the Northern Cape is an amazing place. It's 30% of the land mass of South Africa. It's got 3% of the population. It is the home of large-scale mining. It's also got a very positive attitude towards mining. And that's very important. If you want to build real mining businesses, being in the right place is the thing that you've got to do. We're in the right place. We have secured thousands of square kilometers of prospecting and mining rights, which everybody said it's impossible to do in South Africa. We've done it. We've got 3 mining rights, 2 of which are fully permitted and ready to build. We raised 360 million rand, $30 million, and we went and we executed a trial mining program over the last 6 months. Those results are going into an updated, optimized feasibility study, which is going to be published in the next month, 6 weeks' time. And that's why I don't want to show you figures today, because all the figures are going to change. But I've just come from a conference on the East Coast, where the best of Australian exploration and ASX listed companies, 60 companies, were standing up presenting. And a lot of them have gone from here to Canada and to the US. And there's very few exploration development companies in the world that can say that they will have a bankable plan to produce more than 30,000 tons per month of copper and 60,000 tons a month of zinc. So that gives you per annum of copper. 50,000 tons per annum of copper equivalent. It's world class. And we're going to be able to do it, and we're going to be able to do it in the lower cost quartiles. That's a fantastic opportunity. It's been a process. It's been a long ride. But South Africa is unlocking, and Orion is unlocking at exactly the right time. So very quickly, the Prieska mine, that one that the leader that's now wanting to force me to open it as quickly as possible, he was there and he allowed it to close. You see, Minister, you should have been speaking to Rick Mennel, who I see is in the audience, and that family at the time. It was a different time. We needed to convince those people to keep it open. Well, we're going back and we're going to reopen it, and it's going to be great. This mine has produced 460,000 tons of copper, has produced over 1 million tons of zinc. I firmly believe it'll produce as much again. We're going to show a clear plan to 16 years of life on this project. We've pre-developed it. The site is established. It's got the power, the water, the roads. We've re-established the town. We've got the town to the point that when we did a trial mining exercise, 50% of the employees came from our local town. Their families hadn't worked in mining since 1990. We went there, we started training youngsters. We got them up the skills curve so that, and that's a process that started 5 years. By the time we were drilling our first exploration drill hole, we started training the machine operators of the future. When we did our trial mining, the machines had operators that were youngsters from the town. That is how you get your community engaged, and that's how you move things forward, and that's how Orion operates. Our other great project, and I'm going to flash this number in front of you because it's going to change in a month, and it's going to change for the better. This is the 2020 feasibility study for Prieska. There's an optimized study coming out at the end of this month. Our other great project is the Okiep project. You know, this is a mining district that's produced 2 million tons of copper. About 77% of that came from our prospecting and mining rights. We've just got last week our final right in place so that this is another fully permitted mine. 2 fully permitted, large-scale copper development mines. This mine, we drilled an exploration hole here 2 months ago that was one of the highest grade copper intersections drilled in the world, 50 meters at 5%. Since then, we've drilled dozens of other intersections of high-grade copper mineralization close to surface. There aren't projects like this available in the world. Brownfields, ready to develop, fully permitted, in a place where your jurisdictional environment, your whole ecosystem of mining, is just going through a major positive change. It's a fantastic opportunity, and Orion is at the right place, at the right time, and I hold my head high as a South African in this environment at the moment. You know, that sense of being able to do the impossible. A year ago, everybody said you couldn't turn Eskom around. Eskom is beyond salvage. Well, the mining industry and business and government worked together and we solved the problem. And that just shows you what you can do if you work together with a collective goal where everybody is aligned. That success is something that's going through. Man, we've even beaten the All Blacks. We won a cage fight here in Perth. We can do it all. And how fantastic is having the opportunity to be part of that success. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Next year this time, Minister, I'm going to bring you a brick of copper here because you keep pushing me, but only if some of your gentlemen around you and ladies around you give us that cadaster. Thank you very much.